Actually saw it.
Yeah.
He was just born in April.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to go ahead and get this started. And the first thing that I've done is set my phone on stun so that I ask that each of you do the same thing, because we are recording tonight in addition to filming. I'm Joe Webb. I chair Blueprint Houston. Thank you all for being here. For those of you who might not know what Blueprint Houston's mission is, it's actually a very simple mission. It's to assure the creation of a general plan for the city of Houston based on the citizens' visions, values, and goals. Tonight, we have sent to the candidates a list of questions that focus on some of those issues. And so that's why we set up our forums. Tonight we do, as you can see, the at-large districts, 2, 3, and 5. And our future ones on Thursday night, we will do District D. And on October 3rd, which is another Thursday night, we will do A, B, and I. So again, thank you all for being here. And I will now introduce our moderator, Linda Kahn, who is a past president of the League of Women Voters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the first of a series of City Council candidate forums sponsored by Blueprint Houston. I'm Linda Cohn with the League of Women Voters, serving as your moderator for the evening. Blueprint Houston is a nonprofit organization that serves as a resource and a catalyst for comprehensive long-term planning for Houston's future. Blueprint Houston conducts research, increases civic awareness, builds strategic partnerships, and encourages discussion of citizens' values and goals. This forum and the two that will follow are part of that community outreach. Blueprint Houston's contribution to a learned and cordial public discussion so that all voters can make informed choices on Election Day. All candidates appearing on the ballot for City Council at-large positions 2, 3, and 5 have been invited to attend tonight's forum. Those who have accepted our invitation are assembled in ballot order, and all have received and agreed to our forum guidelines. As you heard Joe say, in a departure from the usual ground rules, all candidates have been advised of the questions well in advance of tonight's presentation. In addition, candidates are permitted to prepare and refer to written notes. Perhaps this will allow for a certain depth and thoughtfulness in the responses. You can think of this as something of an open book test. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. As the clock winds down, there will be a 10-second warning. Want to hold up the 10-second warning when I think. 10-second warning, and then a stern pronouncement that the allotted time is over. We will begin with a 1-minute opening statement from each candidate, beginning with David Robinson. Good evening.
Good evening, Linda. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Blueprint Houston. My name is David Robinson. I'm a candidate for the City Council at-large position 2. I am serving currently as the chairman and president of the Neartown Super Neighborhood, having concluded 2 years of service on the city's Super Neighborhood Alliance. This is a citywide group that has all neighborhoods represented on council, as officially recognized by the City of Houston in the Chapter 33 section of our city code. I have served the city in 2 capacities, serving 2 terms on the Houston Planning Commission. That was with appointments under Mayor Bill White, and then again under our current mayor, Anise Parker. And earlier in the 21st century, I also served on the Municipal Arts Commission. I think with that, I have a proven track record of community service in the neighborhood, and I hope to be your next City Council member at large, position 2.
Thank you. Next, Mo Rivera.
Mo Rivera, and I'm from the city of Houston. I've lived here since 1984. I served in the military for 26 years and retired as a lieutenant colonel back in 2007. After I left the military, I joined the city of Houston, working in the accounting department as a construction accounting supervisor in charge of all the CIP projects that were at the time and being constructed for the Houston airport system. We had refurbishing of a Hobby Airport. It was an old 50, 60-year-old airport at the time that needed refurbishing. We also refurbished the Houston airport system by consolidating the consolidated rental car facilities. Instead of having individual rental car facilities up in the airport, we also did a Terminal E from brand spanking new, over $500 million worth of projects, and we're fixing to refurbish Terminal D. So I've had a vast experience on the accounting side of the house in that spectrum.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving along to at-large position 3, Roisin Calvert.
Thank you. Will I mess up if I stand? Because I'm short and I can't see. I'm Regine G. Calvert. I'm running for at-large position 3, and I bring to this position a great deal of experience. First of all, I'm a native Houstonian. I was born in 3rd Ward, not far from here. And so I've seen Houston grow and I've seen it change. And that's been something that has prompted me to want to run for this office. I also served in nonprofit for over 30 years. And what has that given to me? It's given to me a knowledge of what this community is about, the needs and the issues that face our citizens, our community. I've had an opportunity to work in nonprofit, which also means I've had to be creative. I've had to struggle, like many nonprofits do, and become really into more private-public partnerships, looking creatively. So I've also had 10 years of experience in government, and I hope to bring all of that to Houston City Council and get started day one to serve you.
Thank you. Roy Morales, position at-large 3.
Good evening. My name is Colonel Roy Morales. I'm running for Houston City Council at-large position 3. Retired Air Force, 23 years. Also was the Chief Technology Officer for the Houston Emergency Center, where I brought it on time and $12 million under budget. I was also elected as a Harris County School Trustee, where I served for 6 years, keeping taxes down, but making sure that we had after-school programs and that we had a great Head Start program. It's all about your money, ladies and gentlemen. You should spend it when and where you choose. That's why many business leaders have endorsed me. I have endorsements from developers like Alan Crosswell, Bobby Orr, contractors like Greg Walla, Fred Griffin, and I've just recently been endorsed by the Association of Builders and Contractors because, like you, they know it's about business. My name is Roy Morales, and I hope to get your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, also for at-large position 3, Jennifer Renee Poole.
Good evening. It's very nice to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm Jennifer Renee Poole, and I want to be your City Council member for at-large position 3. I'm a native Texan, born in Beaumont, moved here 33 years ago and put down deep roots. I moved here because this is a great city, a great business city. After a successful career in the construction industry, I started my own business, a consulting business here. I currently sit on 2 different commissions with the City of Houston. One, the Buildings and Standards Commission, which I was appointed to originally by Mayor Bill White, reappointed by Mayor Parker. I also sit on the Public Safety Advisory Committee, where the citizens, as citizens, we oversee fire, police, and homeland security. I have the experience to be your council member. I'm Jennifer Renee Poole.
Thank you. For at-large position 5, Carolyn Evans Shabazz.
Long name. Good evening. I am Dr. Carolyn Evans Shabazz, and I am a candidate for position, for at-large position 5. I also am a native Houstonian, born in 3rd Ward. Didn't know you were there from the I am an executive committee member of the NAACP, and I've been very, very active in the community. My mantra for this campaign is about the people, not the position. I am a person that goes out and tries to walk and work with people and meet them at their point of need. I was endorsed by the Houston Black American Democrats, the Harris County Tejano Democrats, the Communication Workers of America, 6222, and Democracy for Houston. And I thank you for this opportunity, and I am Dr. Carolyn Evans Shabazz, candidate for position 5 at large position 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Also for at-large position 5, James Hurwitz.
Thank you, Linda. I am James Horowitz. I also am running for Houston City Council at large number 5 position. I came down here from Dallas to go to U of H, play baseball. I learned I couldn't throw a curve or hit a curve. I stayed at U of H. At U of H, while I was a student there, I opened up the first halfway house for runaway kids here in Houston called Family Connection. Later, we opened up another place called Sand Dollar. Y'all may have heard of that. I've been very much involved with youth-related issues throughout my college and post-college career. I then went to U of H Law School, and I have been a lawyer here in Houston for over 35 years. I have an office in Midtown. I've lived in different places all over the city, and I want to make a difference. I don't need to make this a career. I do want to make a difference. Thank you, and I look forward to talking about this a little bit later.
Thank you so much. We begin with our questions. First one, while Houston continues to get good national news and rosy assessments, most of that praise is about the Houston region. The city of Houston, however, is dealing with an underperforming property tax base and slowly growing rate of growth. What would you do to ensure that the city of Houston captures its fair share of the regional growth expected for the next decade? Each of you will have 2 minutes to respond, beginning with David Robinson.
Well, thank you again. I think for starters, what we need to do is continue to make Houston a better place. It's an easy thing to say, and I think we have additional resources and a growing population, an eager city, truly, to make itself better from the inside out. We've heard a lot about the donut, and I will tell you that I'm someone who has been fighting in the trenches for the inner city of Houston as a community leader inside the city, and as someone who has served on the Planning Commission. We've been working now for years in my community to try to bring better standards and more efficient government to bear on our aging infrastructure, on the condition of our current streets, and in general to enhance our citizens' experience within the city of Houston. I think this is vital to making Houston an economically viable place for future Houstonians who want to have an experience inside the big city. This is an opportunity that we have to change the trends from going to the suburbs to being that sprawl city that some of us learned about in school. And I think recent press coverage and issues that we're learning about that are emphasizing the exodus may be a little bit premature. I would like to argue for Houston's inner city, what we need to do as economic stewards of the resources to work and hold our elected officials and city staff members accountable for the programs that we currently have on the books. This is especially with respect to the Rebuild Houston program, and as someone who has spent a tremendous amount of my own time and on, to use Lisa Gray's expression in the Houston Chronicle, a bazillion stakeholder committees and task force groups, I know that we can do better, and we must hold our city responsible to maintaining and achieving a higher standard for all of our citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mr. Rivera, I'll repeat the question. What would you do to ensure that the city of Houston captures its fair share of the growth expected in the region for the next decade?
Thank you very much for that question. I feel that Houston, the city of Houston, has so much potential to exploit from the resources of the people it has, from the capacity, from the smartness of the people and the engineers and everything that surrounds the city itself. But we've been abandoning certain sectors of the city. For example, when you go up on 45 North and you head out and you look into Mount Houston, up to West Road, on your left-hand side, you see a bunch of buildings that have been boarded up. They seem to be abandoned. They seem to be neglected, and that needs to change. And one proposal that I will infuse is let's promote that area for revitalization. But not only promote it from the city of Houston, promote it globally. We are in a global market. We're no longer the little city of Houston within the state of Texas. We are in the internet age. We are a global market. We have to advertise those, and there's a good channel in advertising those through HTV. To educate some people, HTV is Houston TV. It's a public channel. All you need to do is just focus on those areas that need capital investment, that need funds, and then exploit that. Show it in the airports as people coming from all over the world. There might be a person that's looking for a warehouse that needs his goods to be stored, and look and say, wait, that's a building that I'm looking for, and infuse capital in rebuilding. That's how we did with it with Hobby Airport. Hobby Airport was a dump. I can realize that because I went through Hobby Airport. I've been here since 1984, and that place was deplorable. But right now, you go to Hobby Airport, it's one of the most beautiful facilities that you can see. That V-shaped terminal is gorgeous. But it takes putting money down, it takes advertising, and it takes hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. Regine Calvert, for at-large position 3. What would you do to ensure that the city of Houston captures its fair share of regional growth?
Well, we've got to look at what makes the growth important and why people will want to move here or stay here. So the elements I see that are critical are, of course, quality education and opportunities for jobs. So all of that is important, and I think we have the job centers. What we need after that are ways to get to the jobs. So we need a good transportation system or options for transportation. With over 1 million people moving in the next 2 decades, we can't keep relying on the streets and automobiles as our source. And some of those us who got here tonight, we know how hard it is to get to places. So we need to look more creatively at our public transportation. Yes, we've got some rail lines coming to online, but I believe we need more connectors that will get people to get to those public transportation stops. Because a lot of times we can't even use it because we can't get there. So transportation, education, then we need affordable housing. We really need a good mixed housing. I think some of you saw the article in today's paper saying that we're 26th out of 50 large cities because our housing costs may be affordable, but when you put it in combination to our transportation costs, we come out 26th. So transportation to get to the jobs, we need the jobs, so we need incentives to bring in job creators. And we see that going out the door with the Exxons moving out and the other centers of job creation. We need to do all that. And I believe in the Blueprint Houston mission of a comprehensive plan, saying that we do have these individual plans, transportation, recreation, housing, all in different silos, but we don't have them connected. I believe in that mission, and I think that that's something we need to do to help bring the people back and keep them here in the city.
Thank you, Ms. Calvert. We're going to welcome our latecomers as soon as this round of questions has been.
I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
Mr. Christie.
You're welcome to take a seat, and we'll go ahead and we'll have you begin your presentation with question 2. So, continuing with question 1, Roy Morales, please have a seat. With Roy Morales, question 1, I'll repeat it for you. What would you do to ensure that the city of Houston captures its fair share of the regional growth that's expected in the next decade?
Well, the answer is so simple. The city has to become a business-friendly city. When I ran for mayor 2009, I talked about it then. I'm talking about it now. Now, I'm the only candidate in my race that truly understands how the property tax system works. I was the chairman of the budget and the audit committee for the Harris County Department of Education. So I understand how to put all the pieces together. We are right now a national economic power, but we need to transform into a global economic power. And when we do that, we need to make sure that businesses come to Houston, and businesses that are already here We need to keep them here, and they need to expand. We should have never, ever lost Toyota to San Antonio. We should have never, ever lost Exxon to the Woodlands. We have so much undeveloped land here. Like Mo was saying, he was talking up there about Mount Houston. But we've got the East End that we need redevelopment. North Forest Independent School District went under for one reason. It did not have the infrastructure. And when you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the businesses to go there. And yes, it is about education, but you have to put the infrastructure in place. You have to have the businesses come here. When they come here, they bring jobs and they build. And when they build, that's more tax revenue that we need here in the city of Houston. When we have that, we have the funds to do what we need to do. And it will ensure that we never end up like Detroit or any other city that's currently going under bankruptcy.
Thank you. Ms. Poole, I'll repeat the question one more time. What would you do to ensure that the city of Houston captures its fair share of the regional growth that's expected in the next decade?
Well, I spend a lot of time working with seniors and individuals around the city. And what I've learned from that is what they want in their communities. And then you ask, well, the people who are moving outside of the city, why do they do the moving? Why do they move out to various areas out in the suburbs? They say things like, well, it's safer out there. The truth is that crime's about the same there as it is in the city. Then they say, well, it's education. Well, the truth is that HISD and the other districts are doing the best job they can, and they're getting better. The key for us to do it in the city is to do two things. One, be friendly to businesses. Currently, if you want to start or expand a business in the city of Houston, the current permitting center stands in your way. The policies and the procedures that are in effect right now and fees to expand your business or start a business are burdensome. We need to clean that up, refine it, make it better. The second thing is as far as our communities, our neighborhoods. How can someone be proud of a neighborhood if they have illegal dumping on every block and they have abandoned homes and dangerous buildings? I sit on the Buildings and Standards Commission. We see this all the time. Every month we meet. The city has over 5,000 lots that need to be cleaned up, buildings that need to be torn down. We need to clean up our act to be more inviting for those people who come to our city. As far as affordable housing, people coming into this city have the opportunity to have good housing at a reasonable price, but we can do more to do that. Our city can promote itself as the business capital of the world only if we do the things necessary to make that an invitation.
Thank you, Ms. Poole. For Carolyn Evans-Shabazz, the question remains, what would you do to ensure that the city of Houston captures its fair share of the anticipated regional growth?
First of all, people are attracted to and live in a city because of what is offered to enhance the quality of life. And Houston needs to attract new businesses and citizens. And as a city leader, I would like to focus on providing quality education. And by that, I would like to see a collaboration and accountability of our school districts. Because if our school districts are not doing well, then that affects our commerce. I would also like to be involved in finding or procuring adequate jobs, effective transportation with easy access to parks, medical facilities, sports and entertainment venues, along with access to major freeways to provide connectivity to other areas of the city. I would also like to be involved in incentives for affordable housing. So as a leader, I would like to reach out and touch a lot of issues that face the city, but are very important in impacting the quality of life.
Thank you. Mr. Hurwitz, what would you do to ensure that the city of Houston captures its fair share of the anticipated regional growth?
Well, as a lawyer, I'm trained when I have a client to assess the issues that my client has. Discuss with my client the pros and cons of possible solutions, including the consequences. Have my client pick out one of those alternatives and help them implement them. If I'm elected and I can get on the city council, I would like to be able to treat the city as a client. I would like to be able to seek answers, possible solutions to problems. I think in city government, what you have is, the theory, I think, is you provide goods and services to people. And then the second prong of city government is that you canvass the needs of your community, and then once determined that, help implement the solutions to those needs. It's really important for the voters to understand the character and the philosophy of each candidate, because all the decisions a candidate makes flows from that type of character and philosophy. I had a chance to read the 150-page report, the Blueprint Houston, also studied the Houston Urban Framework Plan. And a theme that I think runs throughout those plans is something that I've promulgated on my website, Horwitz for Houston, and that is a partnership. I think it's essential, if the city's going to be successful, that they enroll the community, the businesses, in different types of partnerships so that they can do density development. I support Chapter 42. I think it's a good plan. I think that affordable housing and smart growth is possible, and you want to enroll developers in something like that. One of the things that I noticed in that Houston Urban framework was something called entitlement grant gap financing for housing, where you entice developers with, I don't know if it's a tax abatement, but let's say we're going to give you something extra if you provide more parking, you provide more bike paths, you provide pedestrian walkways. I think the key to success in Houston is enrolling the community in a partnership so that we together get the answers we want.
Thank you. We'll continue right now with question 2 for David Robinson, at large, position 2. Citizens repeatedly express a desire to live in walkable, dense neighborhoods with a mix of housing choices and convenient access to transit. How would you address this unmet preference, and how might complete streets be part of the solution?
Well, another excellent question. I think, first of all, we need to live into the Metro plan that was passed by citizens in 2003. That's something that I think some of us in the community who have championed local solutions for our transportation situation can fully understand. That means outside the front door of this building and these organizations housed here, we would have the University line. They could connect the Main Street rail system on Main Street, and with the Red Line that connects the Central Business District and the Medical Center to what is coming as a bus rapid transit system on the Uptown line that is soon to occur in that part of town. The overall mobility is one that we need to stress and emphasize for connectivity. This is for those who need and rely on public transportation to get to work, but it is also to create it as an attractive option for all citizens of Houston. This needs to be established as a standard that we can meet living into the promise that has been made. I believe in very specific solutions for transportation, but it also does not stop at the rail platform or at the bus stop. One of Metro's concessions this past referendum period in 2012 was to recognize the gross shortage of adequate bus stops along our many bus routes throughout the city of Houston. We need to provide better shelters that truly protect one from the rain, make it not an alternative between getting to work wet on a rainy day or on a bad weather day. One has to have adequate sidewalks to get to the train platform or to the bus station. The complete street standards that have been established as a national standard need to be adhered to. We are told, and I am holding my breath, that the mayor is days away from proclaiming an executive order embracing complete streets, and this is something we'll talk about when I have more seconds.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mr. Rivera, walkable, dense neighborhoods, a mix of housing choices, convenient transit. How would you address this, and what part does complete streets play?
When I came here back in 1981, remember Mayor Kathy Whitmire trying to infuse the rail around the city. It was a battle that she had and lost. You need to get in the mindset of the people and convince them to get out of this mentality that if you're not in a truck in the city of Houston and on a train, you just need to convert these people from that mentality to trust a public railroad system. It's been done in many other cities like DC. We're the 4th largest city in the United States, and we need to move towards that. I believe if we do a railroad from specifically the areas that are most traffic congested and have the people and corporations infuse that, that will take so many cars out the street. You take cars out of the street, then you may convert the buses, instead of gas, diesel buses, into natural gas buses. At the airport, all of our fleet from Eco Park is natural gas. Natural gas doesn't create as much pollution as these other petroleum products. So it's a more of education, a mindset, convincing people this is what's best for us, and you just need to head in that direction first. And then second, you need capital. You need capital to infuse people to build smartly. There's many beautiful areas in the Woodlands and in Kingwood where they have done master planning, new territory in Sugar Land. But that takes money, it takes smartness, and it takes smart people at City Council to promote that and convince the people that that's what we need.
Thank you. Roland Chavez, walkable, dense neighborhoods, mix of housing choices, convenient access to transit. How do you address this, and how might complete streets be part of the solution?
May I please, point of personal privilege, just apologize for being late. There's a number of events going on, and so I hope you don't mind me coming in late. But I felt this was very important to be here.
And I'll
too.
interrupt for a second, and please don't count this against this time. We're maintaining ballot order, even though seating maybe is slightly different. That's why. Okay?
That's understandable. Understandable. Dense neighborhoods and mixed housing. Born and raised in Houston, the first ward area is what we were called. We moved when I was 10 years old into the Woodland Heights. I still live there. Born and raised in that neighborhood, we rode the buses. We caught the buses on Houston Avenue. The P-Corps 40 bus, to this day, still runs through downtown, and it'll go north. Do I know how to get to neighborhoods to where they fit all kinds of needs? Yes. I chaired the North Corridor Metro expansion on North Main to North Line. Former council member Aiden Garcia asked me to chair it. I didn't have a dog in that hunt. What I did, though, was I chose to allow citizens and business owners to come to talk and share their issues, how the rail will affect them, whether it be eminent domaining, taking away properties, or how is it going to make it feasible for them to get to places. You know what they failed to do? They failed to provide parking areas. Right now we have the issues of not being able to park on Washington Avenue, on White Oak, on all of these areas. Sure, the communities are beautiful, they're great, they're densely populated. You have grocery stores, Walmarts, everything else. But you want to be able to enjoy the community too. Where do you go park? And you know how often now we were talking about these satellite parking modals that now say that you're going to have to pay to park. So what would I do? I will work with elected officials along with the community to find out better ways on how we can streamline your neighborhoods the way they fit those neighborhoods for all of this. That's what I would do.
Thank you. Rosine Calvert, walkable, dense neighborhoods, mixture of housing choices, complete streets. Your response, please.
We all dream of that, and I think we see that in a couple of areas in inner city Houston, Midtown being one. So how come we can't have more of those? Well, you know, I think it's political will. It starts with us at the city level. We need to create the incentives, be sure the regulations, the building codes, all of those things are in place so that we can encourage the developers to follow this kind of building structure. I think it's less the people, Mo. I think the people are ready. You know, you're right. Back when Kathy Whitmire was mayor, I don't think we were there at that time, unfortunately. So we're 25, 30 years behind. But when we see some of the surveys that Dr. Kleinberg has done, more and more that percentage of our public wants to see this kind of living option. So with the housing, mixed housing, I call it, or mixed use, where we have retail, we have housing, where we can live, work, and play as they describe in this urban framework, we need to create those centers. But as I said earlier in my response, we need good transportation options. How can we use public transportation when you can't get to there and you have to drive a car and you have to park your car? It doesn't make sense. Our Bayous plan is beautiful, but you got to take a car to get to it, the trails. So we need smaller networks, jitney buses, shuttles, other ways that people could get to where they could take some mass transit, and then they can get to these walkable centers or live in these centers where they don't have to go somewhere else to shop and all. The other thing is that complete streets is a wonderful concept, and we are very close, I promise you, that the mayor will be integrating that through an executive order into all of our design, and that's what we need, is really institutionalizing these concepts and these policies. We need the political will and the regulation to back that up.
Thank you. Roy Morales, here are the prompt, the key words: walkable, dense, mixed housing, access to transit, complete streets.
Well, we still have a balance, I think, and it's switching. We Texans like a lot of land. And when we need land, we go outside of the loop and closer to the Beltway and even on the other side of the Beltway. But things are changing. And fortunately, this year, council voted to modify Chapter 42 so we could have some denser areas outside of the loop. Mr. Rivera talked about a little bit about heavy rail. We need to start looking at heavy rail as well as part of our planning out to those areas, to Kingwood, to Clear Lake, to the north side of town, to the west side of town. And we need to integrate that into a transportation system here as well. In the past few years, I've talked about some of the problems by putting rail up here on Richmond. They've studied it for years. You can go all the way back to Louis Macy when he was on city council, and they've already had the study. It doesn't work here, but it may work somewhere else. We need to look at that. And if you want to keep the costs down, because the costs are out of control right now, you need to look at light rail. I talked about that. There are cities here in this country like Seattle that has implemented that. When you look at that monorail system, but we need to look at buses. When I lived in Midtown, we had trolleys. Those trolleys are gone now. We need to be able to integrate a full package with our buses, and we need more buses as well. In another forum, I'll be talking about natural gas. 275 years of natural gas reserves, no pollutants. We should be putting that on our school buses, on the metro buses, on our garbage trucks, on our fire vehicles. As we start replenishing the fleet, we should be looking at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Poole, walkable, dense, mixed, transit, complete streets. That's
All
our
in-
shorthand. That's
all
our
in 2
shorthand.
minutes, right?
That's right.
Well, one thing I've talked about for 4 years now, and finally something's being done at the city, is for many people in our city, an effective transit system is just the sidewalk in front of their home. And there hasn't been a responsibility to maintain those sidewalks and over the year. If you want a walkable city, you need to have the sidewalks in the city actually able where you can walk on them. Like I said earlier, I work with senior citizens, and probably their two biggest complaints are the sidewalks and the buses. And we need to be aware that, yes, we need a comprehensive metro system that can reach out and bring people in smaller buses into where we have the larger buses to pick up the other lines. I like rail. I've gone to cities that have rail systems within their cities that work wonderfully. The difference is here, when some of what we're doing, I'm not quite sure. I'm not smart enough to know that they're really going to be as effective as everybody thinks. The rail on Richmond, whether it go to Richmond, go where the people are and bring it to where the businesses are. I haven't seen that yet. The airports have been neglected. There used to be a bus that ran to the airports all the time. We don't have that like we used to. For a city to be as workable and as livable as we're talking about, it starts with the people who are living here and enjoying the area they live in. And that means keeping it clean, keeping it well kept, keeping it where the streets are in proper condition for vehicles other than automobiles.
Thank you. The next three candidates are vying for at-large position 5. We'll begin with Jack Christie. Here are the prompts: walkable, dense neighborhoods, mixed housing, access to transit, and complete streets.
Okay, we need better transit because it took me too long to get here. So I'll be calling TxDOT tomorrow, so I apologize. My day started at 7 and this is my 5th stop, but I apologize for being late. I think everything that you brought up, there's not a negative voice on city council that is negating anything from complete streets to higher density to livable neighborhoods, sustainable neighborhoods, quality of life. It's just, I still think we lack a long-term plan for these. I think we have good short-term plans and such, and with some of the experts at these organizations and the regional studies, we're getting there, but I think if we don't fix the long-term financial, I don't think we can do complete streets everywhere. I don't think we could have 1,000 more buses or anything like that. So we're doing things like 380 agreements, TERS zones, and city center, the new pavilion, $200 million there. Everything is geared towards walkability. I was there the first day we started the bike share program, and everything is geared towards this quality of life. Transportation is a key part of it, but we give builders incentives for, and in Chapter 42, incentives to make affordable living, higher density, and tied into some of the rail lines. You've got to look at the rail lines. A lot of it's 80%, except for the Harrisburg line, is 80% federal. And every time it comes up, I says, just don't get used to that money because someday it'll be gone. So I think there's a positive impetus on city council to attain these goals. And they're laudable goals.
Thank you. Carolyn Evans Shabazz, at-large, position 5, walkable, dense, mixed transit, complete streets.
Okay, this city is still very car dependent, and there must be a development of multimodal, balanced multimodal transportation system, which utilizes cars, rails, bus, and bicycles. We must have sidewalk improvement, bike trails, and bus shelters need to be provided and maintained. And this balanced transportation system can shorten commutes and perhaps provide exercise as a means of moving around from place to place for all ages. In regards to mixed housing choices, I think that it needs to be affordable housing within a community, not exclusive of a community. And I think there needs to be some encouragement with providing quality, equitable education in your local school. because that could certainly cut down on the commute time for a lot of families and could help families to be strengthened, actually, because the children now get up in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and they are gone, and then they come back, earlier in the day because they can't participate in the activities because they are being bused to schools. So I think it's very key that we work with the school system to make sure that there's equitable quality education in the local schools so that our children can walk to school. And that's very important in a walkable community.
Thank you. James Horowitz, walkable, dense, mixed streets, and complete streets.
The idea of density development in Chapter 42 has to overcome a mindset of single-family homes that have resisted density development. I was involved in the Ashby high-rise controversy, and we've seen that. We've seen very, very angry citizens meetings that go on with that. Education is the only way to overcome that. We're all in this together. As I've said before, it's a partnership. We have to educate everybody as to what is best for the majority of people. Smart growth, high density is a fabulous idea. I've seen it happen in San Diego, which jumps to mind most recently. It doesn't increase crime. Multifamily units decrease car ownership, so you don't get as congested with that kind of development. Affordable housing, has been said, incentives to developers and builders will help them go along with the ideas that entities such as Blueprint Houston have come up with. They don't want to put in parking spaces because they can make money putting something that they can rent in that spot. But if you give them incentives, then you encourage them to do the right thing, as increasing parking, putting in bike paths, putting in pedestrian walkways. I again agree with most of the other candidates, the trifecta of light rail, buses, and heavy rail. One of the things that we banner around is smart building. Let me give you an example. In Boston, which is really cold.
Could you wrap? Your time has been just finish your sentence.
Well, we can have an app that the buses can have GPS. Everybody riding the bus will know when the bus is coming. It's real simple.
Thank you. We go on to another question for at-large position 2 candidates at first. Although the Houston region is often touted for its low housing costs, when transportation costs are included, the region falls to 17th in affordability among major metropolitan areas. How would you address the shortage of moderate income housing inside the city limits? How would you improve the housing, jobs, connectivity, and shorten the commute? We begin with David Robinson.
Well, another excellent question. I think in this regard, it is one that I've been working on for over a decade. It was some of our members from this organization with the American Institute of Architects that worked on a program in 2003, a RUDAP, Regional Urban Design Assistance Team program, where we focused on affordable housing issues. That was then chaired by then Councilmember Gordon Kwan, my friend and very capable leader, who built a consensus set of panels that truly presented a platform and an approach to increasing affordable housing across our city. How well was that adopted by city leaders? I would say we left ourselves short. We have a tremendous amount of work left. Housing authorities at both the city and the county need to be held accountable for the funding sources that they're responsible for. And I think the implementation is something that can truly benefit from the eyes, the wisdom, and the experience of groups like Blueprint Houston. Fundamentally, mixed housing works better when it has access to transportation. Multimodal transportation of the public variety is a preference. I think also linking of locations of affordable, attainable, accessible, affordable housing needs to be focused where infrastructure can provide adequate resources for those types of developments. This is where the city, I think, and in this case, the approach that we led with the RUDAT was to think about those city leaders, both from the political community as well as the development community. They could work with our non-profit vision leaders, those that had the ideas, and put together the forces of development, again, in places that can sustain them in ways that I think our professions are all growing better at accommodating through sustainable practices, through environmental and economic controls that help people pull themselves up with their bootstraps.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mo Rivera, moderate income housing, housing jobs, connectivity.
I've always been an accountant all my life, even though I was in the military trained to kill people in masses. But what I've seen a program that really works is Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity, which was started by, I believe President Carter was involved in that, is a beautiful program that should be exploited. Why? Because you have the experts donating their time. They donate their expertise in construction and engineering planning and all the aspects of actually putting a building together, affordable building. Let me tell you what, when you have passion, when you have people that really want to help other people, you'll find volunteers. You'll find the nonprofit agencies to volunteer and actually do these projects. All they need is investors to buy the materials, the architects to do the drawings, and the worker bees to actually construct it. And it can be possible. It's inexpensive. You don't have to infuse a lot of money. I know the city has this Rebuild Houston program, and it's approved $125 million for that. But tell you what, $125 million doesn't reach out so much unless you prioritize. And it's going to be a long time till something gets done. So my prerogative will be to have private corporations, nonprofit organizations help out in this endeavor. Provide the piece of property. Make it affordable for people that can really not pay the dues or the income to afford that. Apartments are very expensive. Apartments in Kingwood, close to $1,000. It's those apartments from way back then that you paid $350, $360 are gone. So we need affordable housing, but we need resources, human resources, and charity to do that.
Thank you. For at-large, position 3, Roland Chavez, moderate income housing inside the city limits and housing job connectivity. 2 minutes.
You know, you ask yourself a question, how do we get to this position to where our residents decided to leave the city to go move onward? Ask yourself that. My family never left the community. We stayed here, and we're still here. Sadly, a lot of our seniors can't afford to stay here now simply because of the rising cost of property values within the city. The people who left here left because bad core services, schools, jobs, and the inability to be able to go and do your shopping, and they wanted to be able to live safely. But now you're trying to get them to come back. And obviously the economy has allowed that to happen. With the different programs, the Houston Homebuyer Assistance Program, Houston Hope, and Workforce Housing, these opportunities are there for people to come back into the city. But how do you mix that in with these neighborhoods and with the job and the economy? Well, leaders, elected officials, along with community leaders, you got to go out into these neighborhoods and go and ask the neighbors and these communities, what is it best fit for these neighborhoods? And go out to go and bring these back. The jobs are coming, but we need to keep the jobs inside the loop or inside the Beltway, because you've proven it. People live outside the Beltway and commute in town. Traffic congestion. My hope would be is that we work well with all the community leaders. We work well with the assistance programs to be able to find more affordable housing for people who live in these communities. Again, I'm a product of the inner city. and still live in the inner city. We chose not to leave. But if my mom wasn't 85 years old, sadly, she probably would be forced to leave simply because of the property value. And she lives within walking distance of downtown, a little north of that. So what I would do is work extensively hard with community leaders in order to be able to find ways to make housing affordable, along with the creation of more jobs in the city.
Thank you. Rosine Calvert, at-large position 3, moderate income housing inside the city limits and housing jobs connectivity.
I think the truth of the matter is we do have moderate income housing inside the city. But when we talk about moderate income housing, sometimes it's construed as affordable housing. And that term has become very, very, disdained by a lot of neighborhoods. And they don't want affordable housing in their neighborhood. So it does make for bad conflict. What we need to create is be creative in creating a mixed level housing, just like the Woodlands was created several decades ago, to have high income, middle income, and low income all in the same vicinity. What we seem to see in Houston is that we are segregated by income and by housing levels. And so I would challenge the city, and I would like to see us use incentives, again, other regulatory opportunities to incentivize developers to create this high, middle, and low income. Now, today, as I referred earlier, there was an article in the paper about housing costs in Houston. It's also connected to income because, affordable housing is considered to be no more than 30% of your income for rent or mortgage. So we got to look at incomes. If incomes are low, then of course that ratio is going to be higher. It can't be in isolation. So we want to make affordable housing available. We want to make lower transportation costs available, which I've talked about. But we also have to look at more sustainable and reasonable income levels. Some of the districts that were cited that has the highest percentage of housing costs are the ones that have the lowest income, median incomes. So that's a formula we have to look at in totality. That's how I think we have to address it.
Thank you. Roy Morales, moderate income housing inside the city, housing job connectivity.
Well, the question is, what is affordable? Are we talking about what a cook can afford? Are we talking about what a cleaning lady can afford? Are we talking about what someone working for the oil and gas and just manufacturing the pipes? It just really depends. And when we talk about the city, what I've heard here, it kind of like it's talking about inside the loop. Well, friends, we have 671 square miles. That includes Kingwood and Clear Lake and the far west side of Houston, the northwest side that's growing. What we have to do here is that we need to look back at the plan that the originators had of Houston. That's Mr. W.T. Carter, Mr. Jesse Jones. They had a vision of no highways. They had a vision in the 1950s of having areas throughout the city, throughout the region, and believe it or not, connected with fiber. So you could be able to work and live in the area. They were totally against highways, but we ended up having highways. But that concept is still there. And I believe in certain sectors of our economy, individuals that use the computer, for example, are able to work at home. That would take thousands of people off the roads. Even when I was a chief technology officer for the Houston Emergency Center, I had employees that worked for me. They didn't need to be there. They could be out in Sugar Land or in Kingwood doing their work. We have many like that. And this cost ratio is very important as well. That's why I'm going to go back and talk about these buses. We need more buses out there. And as we replenish that fleet, we need to ensure that they're natural gas. That way, that ratio will decrease.
Thank you. Jennifer Renee Poole, the question is moderate income housing and job housing connectivity.
It hits two different directions. It goes back to our ability for mobility, and which falls on Metro's shoulders, if not the automobile. As far as low and moderate housing, what we're talking about is that there are programs within the city already that were mentioned just a moment ago. Hope is one of them, but Laura is another one. That's at utilizing lots that the city has taken in ownership of because of some reason. The Buildings and Standards Commission, when we tear down a house and there's no heirs, the city ends up owning them. They've been used to help build new homes. Working with developers and other builders to build moderate income homes for around the city. And they're scattered all over the city. It's a matter of pushing those programs that we already have to facilitate vast areas. The other part of that is about jobs and job connectivity. It's about transportation, but it's also about working with developers and business people to try to fill in these deserts that we have, these business deserts as well as shopping deserts that are scattered around the city that have developed naturally over the years. But many of these areas are starting to become Renaissance areas, and with a little incentive from the city, they could in fact be brought back to new. I work with a lot of developers, and we're working now for a project down on the southeast side of town just for that purpose, to fill in that desert and make the area around there more livable and a superior quality of life.
Thank you. At large position 5 candidates, we begin with Jack Christie, moderate income housing inside the city limits and housing jobs connectivity.
20 years ago, we weren't ranked 17th. We were right at the top as far as affordability. And I remember some of the New Yorkers or people from Connecticut would have their $1 million from the sale of their house, and they could get the same thing for $500,000 down here. So it has reversed because I think also in that article there, in round numbers, the city of Houston has grown 7%, 150,000 people. Harris County grew 500,000 people because of the affordability factor. So the response, and it's been a grueling couple of years developing Chapter 42, and that speaks to that inside the loop, outside the loop, get affordable housing by getting higher density. And not the high density of New York City or anything, but just higher density to where that builder can take that $350,000 house, it'll be a $250,000 townhouse. And it's being done. It is not a finished product, Chapter 42. It should be reviewed every year. It was a beautiful process because it went to the neighborhoods, every neighborhood, and said, you have your deed restrictions. Those are still good. You can even firm up your deed restrictions. But to help builders build affordable housing, we're going to have incentives. And there's also the incentives of downtown housing to where those condos are filled. Those apartment houses are filled because there were incentives of 380 agreements, tax abatements, incentives. There's some federal incentives. So the goal has been worked on for a long while, and it's only going to get better. And they're coming to the city.
Thank you. Carolyn Eden Shabazz, moderate income housing inside the city limits and housing job connectivity. Candidate for at-large position 5.
I just want to say before I get started, I'm not really verbose, but I'm more of an action person. But we can't see that card, so I wouldn't mind if you would say so many seconds. It's because of the light behind you, and he really can't see it at all. Not that I'm trying to help him or anything. Okay, I think that incentives need to be offered to developers to encourage moderate, multi-income family home construction in the inner city. There's a great deal of undeveloped and underdeveloped property that could facilitate this inner city construction. Of course, infrastructure must be assessed to determine the feasibility of development as well as repaired to sustain development. But in regards to improving housing job connectivity, I believe that affordable housing in the inner city near mixed use properties improves the housing job connectivity.
Thank you.
You're not verbose.
Thank you. Mr. Hurwitz, housing jobs connectivity and moderate income housing within the city limits.
I represent a number of civic associations, and we're forced to deal with the fact that Houston doesn't have zoning. We have deed restrictions. When you start building, you end up with the wild cowboy builders that aren't bound by any zoning. And the deed restrictions, sometimes they're abandoned. You have to strengthen those. Neighborhoods, as they increase in density, the vehicle mileage decreases because destinations are closer. So people can walk or take bikes to nearby services or take accessible public transit. Transit connections become more cost-effective and common when neighborhood density increases. In addition, multifamily developments are known to have lower car ownership, as I mentioned earlier, than single-family home tracts. Our city can meet local and regional housing needs without consuming open space or agricultural land by building on vacant properties and already developed populated areas and increasing densities. Infill development, building on unused land within existing developed areas, can also decrease costs because it makes use of existing infrastructure. Infrastructure costs per housing unit drop dramatically as densities increase. And communities can revitalize those vacant, rundown commercial districts by bringing in local customers, increasing their taxable sales with high-density mixed-use development in those infill locations. And again, the public transit that we have, if we're smart, we can encourage young people, older people, to use the public transport. We don't have to use our vehicles.
10 seconds.
I'll stop. We can talk a little bit more later.
Okay. We have one more question I'd like for you to have an opportunity to express your views on. However, this forum was scheduled to end at 8 o'clock. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to mean that we're going to get locked in or get locked out. But if you can keep your answers down to 1 minute, 30 seconds, 90 seconds, we'll be fine. Here's the question. How would you balance some areas' need for redevelopment with prevention of inappropriate development in other areas of the city? 90 seconds.
Well,
Dave Robinson.
It's an excellent question. With the passage of Chapter 42, we've got developers standing side to side, shoulder to shoulder, I think it was said, before City Council. I think that was April 10th this year. When it was passed, there was a set of conditions that were set with the city, put forward by members of the Super Neighborhood Alliance. And having been very intimately involved with that, I know that we are still working with the city for their response to a number of these issues. With that, I know I was able to say earlier that the mayor is about to execute an executive order about complete streets. But what we need to do about runaway urban cowboys from the development community is really to hold them responsible for their development. It is important that they follow deed restrictions. There's a simple application form that we are looking for an expansion of the current terminology that says not only is a developer aware of a local civic club's deed restrictions, but in fact they are adhering to those, which is a completely different standard. For the Super Neighborhood Alliance, I will tell you that there were 3 essential components to the proposal that went before City Council and was approved. It was that we have heightened review of applications and permits. We have transparent and effective inspection in the communities. And we have one appropriate enforcement to show that there is teeth for those who are errant wild cowboys in our midst.
Thank you. Mo Rivera, Ballard's Development.
I believe in accountability of construction firms and people that actually win these contracts, and for them not to take shortcuts. And the only way that could possibly be done is by having inspectors look deeply in the quality of construction of these projects and hold them accountable. If they're taking shortcuts, if they're not using quality materials, raise up a red flag. A lot of construction contracts have stipulations that makes them responsible if they do any type of shoddy work. So let's hold these construction people responsible, and that would take us one step closer in accomplishing that mission.
Thank you. At large, position 3, Roland Chavez, Balanced Area Development.
You know, I don't think any one of us oppose new development, contractors. None of us are opposed to moving forward. I think most of us, though, would like to make sure that the blend of new development coincides with the character of the existing neighborhoods already in place. What I don't think, like I said, we don't oppose to development, but you don't want to put a bingo parlor or a game room right next to a neighborhood that's so quality of life assurance, neighborhood schools, parks, libraries, and then you're going to have this element. I think there's areas to where they can fit, but not all areas. So what you need to do is concentrate heavily on the character of each existing neighborhood and move as we go along. Like again, I said, I'm not opposed to any development because it does bring in jobs. It can bring in affordable housing in the areas, but let's be prudent and let's be aware of what our neighborhoods already exist and look like.
Thank you. Regine Calvert, at large, position 3, Balanced Development.
I agree with Roland that that each neighborhood is different. So I think that each neighborhood, with the help of super neighborhood alliances and super neighborhood councils and all of the tools they have with them, management districts even, that they need to create that strategic plan that fits the character of that neighborhood or that area. And once that's done, then there is this vision of what should go there. Then following that, we need the proper regulations, guidelines, whatever it is, ordinances even, that will safeguard and protect that neighborhood. Maybe a checklist of the criteria that are needed, that we can go back and be accountable, and the developers and the wild, cowboys that come in to help develop that area can have guidelines to follow. I think we've been pretty wide open in what our expectation is. The last thing I would really want to see is the opportunity for the neighborhood itself to talk with these developers. I think sometimes we don't have that opportunity, and that doesn't happen. And so there's a lot of misinformation and confusion and things that happen that could be avoided. So I would like to see that built into the process, that neighborhoods and developers can sit down with each other.
Thank you. Roy Morales, Balanced Development.
Well, I think if you say 2 words to these developers, they get it. Ashby High Rise. Nobody wants that type of publicity. It's not good business. And that's why developers, contractors need to work with the community and with the city. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to the deed restrictions, the community needs to be aware of it. People just want to live their lives. They don't look into these deed restrictions until it's too late. And we need to be transparent, the developers, the city, if there's going to be development there. But once it's decided, it's been mentioned about these cowboy developers. I'm going to talk about the Gestapo tactics that are done by permitting and these inspectors. After everything's been approved, they come in and say, no, that's not how it's supposed to be. And then you make the changes, and you have another inspector come in and say, no, it needs to be changed this way. And that's costing everybody money, and guess who pays at the end of the day? You, the consumer, the one that's buying the property. So we need to ensure that we bring everybody together, and we really need to ensure that we have consistency from the city when we go out there and we inspect.
Thank you. Jennifer Renee Poole. The topic is Balanced Development.
Well, my business is working with developers and builders, and I sit on the advisory committee of the Permitting Center. And one of the things that was mentioned by David is one of those, is making the, on the application process, the builder, developer, responsible for knowledge of in the details of the deed restrictions, not just that they're aware that they exist. That allows too much flexibility. I'm in favor of development. I think that our city is great because it rebuilds itself. It renews itself over a period of time in various areas. However, balance is the important thing. And the only way you can find balance if you're working together. The people who live in the neighborhood, the developers, all of them need to have a dialogue. And I think that the city can be that facilitator for that dialogue to make sure that we do create a balance, that we don't have people in the Heights demonstrating on a bridge because of Walmart. The fact is that you follow the rules, it happened. But Ashby High Rise, same thing. There needs to be that conversation facilitated by the city where the people who live there and the business and developers can all work together. Because if we work together, we can build a better Houston where it matters.
Thank you, Ms. Poole. For at-large position 5, Jack Christie, balance.
I think the word was the balance of the undesirable or the type of development that you don't want. Fortunately, from like previous city councils, there's ordinances that had restrictions to undesirable developments and the 1,000-foot from churches and schools and children and parks, and that's still enforced. But one of the nicest thing that I've seen working with the City of Houston and City Council is that neighborhoods are a priority. They have the trump card say with their deed restrictions. There's a budsman and the budswomen out in each neighborhood listening. There's even assistance that if your deed restriction is outdated, needs updated, there's assistance from the city to help tighten those deed restrictions. But what I've seen is the neighborhoods have priority of their desirability, and then some of these restrictions on the 1,000-foot, it's still held and utilized and enforced.
Thank you. Carolyn Evans Shabazz, balance.
There is a shortage of inspectors that needs to be addressed. More qualified inspectors need to be hired, and these inspectors need to enforce the codes already in place to prevent inappropriate development. In regards to Chapter 42, there must also be the preservation of the character of neighborhoods by revisiting deed restrictions to ensure the protection from inappropriate development. In regards to deed restrictions, there is actually a disconnect between city planning and city clubs and associations. If there's not a complaint from property owners, then sometimes homes are developed that violate deed restrictions. There's actually a place on the form in city planning for the signature of the city club president, and these plans are allowed to go forth without that signature. And this results in inappropriate development, and this process needs to be revamped and followed.
Thank you. James Horowitz, balance.
I also recall you talked about issues involving inappropriate development.
Mm-hmm.
And in a single word, partnership, I believe, is the answer. I don't want to overcomplicate this, and I almost look at it as when raising your child. You have negative reinforcement, you have positive reinforcement. We have enforcement available to try and curb some of the actions of the developers, but without zoning, they can still take advantage of the law. I work with these civic associations. I know when deed restrictions lapse. I know how difficult it is to amend them. You need a tremendously high percentage of the people in those areas to agree to that, and they don't do that. What we want is positive reinforcement. We want to work with the developers in ways that I've mentioned earlier to make it monetarily feasible for them to make the changes that we want that will help our community.
Thank you. And that will wrap it up for this evening. Our thanks to our panelists. For at-large position 2, David Robinson. Mo Rivera. For at-large position 3, Roland Chavez, Rosine Calvert, Roy Morales, Jennifer Renee Poole, and for at-large position 5, Jack Christie, Carolyn Evans Shabazz, and James Horowitz. Thanks to Joanne, thanks to Martha Murphy, Executive Director of Blueprint Houston. Thanks to our timekeeper, Renee Martinez. And thanks to all of you for listening and for being a vital part of our great American democracy. We will gather again this Thursday, right here, September 26th, 6:30 p.m. for a forum featuring candidates for Houston City Council District D. There are 12 people on the ballot.
I thought there were 13.
And again, on October 3rd, for a forum featuring candidates for Houston City Council Districts A, B, and I. Election day, and this is from the League of Women Voters. This is to remind everyone, okay? Election day is Tuesday, November 5th. October 7th is the last day to register to vote or to update your name or address details. Early voting starts on October 21st, ends on Friday, November 1st. And finally, if you're over 65, if you plan to be away from Harris County on Election Day or during the early voting period, or if you're sick or disabled, you can vote by using a mail-in paper ballot. You can request that ballot right now, www.harrisvotes.com. Thanks again. See you on Thursday.
Thank you all, and thank each of the candidates.
Thank you for coming out.